All right, guys, it's Thursday morning, and I thought I'd do something a little different here for a video. I had a guy ask me what got me into Tri-5s, so I thought it'd be a good time to get out a few pictures. I've got another box of pictures, and I cannot find them, and they may be in my attic. I'm just not sure. I've got one spare bedroom that's so full of parts you can't even get in there, and they could be in there also. But so this is just some of the stuff. So I'll start out with what really got me into Tri-5s from the get-go. In 1977, I was 5 years old, and my mom and dad bought this 55 Chevy two-door hardtop. I don't remember what the color was on it, but this is after my mom stripped it to bare metal. She said it took her about a week to do it. But my dad worked at Southwestern Bell Telephone Company in Tulsa, and anyway, so while he was at work, she did, body work type stuff on cars. Now my mom actually did all the painting on the cars as I grew up. So I learned how to paint from my mother, which is pretty damn awesome. How many guys can say that, This was back in, 77, so it was lacquer days, But anyway, here's a picture of it after it was painted with red and white lacquer. If I remember right, that car was an all-original 265 V8 car. I don't think it didn't have air conditioning and power windows and stuff. It was just your basic run-of-the-mill 55, but it was a Bel Air. I don't have any pictures of it finished. It was in our yearbook at Ketchum for my brother's senior year, which I think was 1982, but I don't remember. He actually drove it to a photo thing for the school, and they took a picture of him standing by it, but I don't have any pictures of it. This was actually before we moved to Ketchum in like 1980 or 81. I don't really remember what year we moved down there. But I started second grade at Ketchum down at Grand Lake. But this was in Verdigris, Oklahoma. And anyway, there was always Tri-5s there. There was a four-door Bel Air that my dad bought for a parts car for $40, and my brother drove it home. So I had plenty of cars to play in. This was my middle brother's 56 two-door hardtop. He never did anything with it. He ended up selling it, but I did play in that car quite a bit with my friend. And once we moved to Ketchum, this is actually a picture of my mom's car. That's our trailer house over there. But in the background over there, you can see the 55 red and white. This is my brother's, I think it was a 71 Chevelle Malibu 350 car. It was yellow with a black vinyl top, and beside it is this 150-55 Chevy two-door post that was red oxide primer. I believe that car had a 327 and a 4-speed transmission. I rode back from school with him for like one whole year of school. When we get out of school, I get a ride home with him. But anyway, back to up here when they're working on this car. My mom was actually cleaning her paint gun in the floor of the garage, and the vapor from the lacquer thinner actually ignited and caught her on fire on her legs really bad. So she was in the hospital for a long time with burns. I don't remember how long she was in there, but I drew this and gave to my dad to give to her. I drew that at 5 years old. I think that's pretty dang good for a 5-year-old kid, but I am biased, 5 years old and them restoring that 55, and then every weekend it seemed like we drove to my grandma's house at Grand Lake, and my dad had a lot of brothers, and it was like a Tri-5 car show every time we went to grandma's house. There was always Tri-5 Chevys there, and there was also 55 6s and stuff in the backyard out that were like parts cars and stuff. One of my uncles had a 55 Chevy two-door hardtop that was gold. Um, it had a 400 small block and a 4-speed. And then he put a 427 big block in it out of a Chevelle or something. And he ended up wrecking that car racing a Dodge Super Bee. He flipped it over on its lid and skidded down the ditch. But anyway, fast forward to, I want to say this is 1994, somewhere in there, probably 1994. I got married in 1992, and I'm still married. I found this car in Kenwood, Oklahoma. A guy had this one sitting out. The motor and transmission was out of it. And I had an old 305 and a turbo 350, and ended up dragging this car in, and it was a rust bucket. I mean, it was a total rust bucket. It must have come from up north. It was bad rusty. Ended up doing the old screen wire and Bondo trick down in the quarter panels and bottoms of the doors and stuff, you know, and ended up using, picture was taken at my best friend's house in his garage. He'd just bought a house, and the garage was empty, and we took the car over there and spent 2 weeks on it after work, and we just did a scuff and shoot type of thing and fixed the Bondo with screen wire and Bondo. No way I'd do that nowadays. Anyway, we ended up painting it with, I painted it with Anchor paint, like boat dock paint or whatever. That's actually, we got it from a guy that builds boat docks. He had a bunch of extra red and a bunch of extra white, so we used it for that. And I put old Chevy rallies on it. It was a pretty nice car, had a little 2-barrel on it. But anyway, I drove it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. And I ended up finding this body from the same guy. This was down in a gully behind his grandpa's house. They'd actually pushed it off down in the gully. And it had front fenders on it, and it had glass in it. Most of the glass was broken, but all the interior was out of it. And that was a really solid car. Really, really rust-free car. It had little bitty pinholes in the front floorboards. But the bad part was when they pushed it down the gully, it went way down there, and it actually hit a tree in the quarter panel on the other side. It was pretty wasted. But the body was so rust-free. So I ended up getting that car, and we put a whole bunch of log chains together. And one of my buddies had a 62 Chevy pickup with a dome piston small block 355 in it. And we pulled that car out of that gully with that truck. It was awesome. I mean, that car was way down there, man. And so we ended up getting the body out of there. Well, I come home, stripped all the windows out of it and the front clip off of it and stuff. And now in this picture, this is this car. You can barely see another 55 over there. Somebody had drugged that into our local scrapyard. We had it wasn't really a salvage, it was just a place that he took scrap metal and stuff, and occasionally he'd get cars. Excuse me. Anyway, they'd had a perfect quarter panel on it, and I cut that quarter off and put on this car. That was my first quarter panel job, was on that car. And this paint on this car was Omnicoat. I think it was an alkyd enamel. Man, that stuff, it laid out so nice back then. But anyway, this is the first 55 that technically I actually fully built, because I took it off the frame and I painted the frame and did all that stuff. But it ended up getting a real 383, 350 with a 400 crank in it. It had World Products heads on it. 400 turbo transmission, had a 12-bolt posi out of a Camaro, like a 68 or 9 Camaro or something. And I street raced the crap out of that car. I drove it for, I don't know, 5-6 months, and I got tired of it, and I ended up painting black on the front. I'm not sure what this is. This may have been 95 in this picture, and that's me posing when I actually had hair. I don't have a bit of hair anymore. But I lowered the car, and I had 8-inch rallies on the back and 7s on the front. I think I painted the hood, but I hadn't put it on yet. But I street raced that car all the time in Fairland, Oklahoma. There's a lot of guys up there had a little car club and they like to street race. And I was ate up with it, man. But I ended up selling this car back to the guy that I got the cars from. I took it up there just to show it to him, you know, what it was like, and I let him drive it, and he smashed the gas. We went sideways, and he's like, I want this car. He ended up going to the bank and borrowing the money and buying it from me. So it was kind of cool. So anyway, I got to missing 55s. I ended up getting a 4-door. My dad bought me a 4-door, and I was paying him out on it. It was just a red, I don't have a picture of it. It's a red oxide primer 4-door 55, but it had factory power steering on it. And I drove it for a long time. And then I ended up buying a 55 2-door post with the dome piston 355 and a 9-inch Ford in it, 411 gears. And it was blue, and I ended up painting it orange. And that was my new street race car. That was me at a car show in Jay, Oklahoma. And that's my mom and dad's 64.5 convertible Mustang they completely restored. So anyway, this is me back in the probably 93, 94, 95 era. I bought a 1990 Mustang GT50. It was actually for my wife, for her to drive back and forth to work. And it was white, and I ended up painting it yellow and put some wheels on it and stuff. It was a pretty car. So my first, now I've had a bunch of 4-door 55s and several 2-door post cars, and I had one Nomad I bought as a basket case, and I don't have a picture of it either. I have one, I just don't know where it's at. I never got to drive it. It was so far torn apart, and I got a lot of it back together, but I ended up trading it straight across for a 1970 Camaro split bumper with a 454 in it that was worked over, and I street raced it. I'm glad the dates on the picture, 2007. This is my first 55 hardtop. It did not look like this when I got it. I didn't have a front clip on it, no motor, no training when I got it. It had original red and white paint on it. The quarter panel was primered, and I ended up finding a bad quarter panel patch job on it also. So I threw it together. I did a little 355 in it. This is just primer, and that's just like black urethane primer and buff color urethane primer. And I ended up taking it to the drag strip and running it. I have a build thread on Tri-5 that's called Half Rod's 30-Day Hardtop Build, and I basically took the car off the frame and had the frame blasted and the body and a lot of stuff sandblasted. And I went through and did some metal work, and I was basically running out of time to paint it. And the quarter panel, actually, it needed new quarter put on it. It was pretty botched up. So I decided just to go ahead and body work it back together and put it in primer. I ended up selling that car on eBay. My dumb butt maxed out a few credit cards. It was pretty silly. So anyway, that car went to, I believe, Wisconsin. But anyway, I've always had motorcycles. I grew up on motorcycles. I got my first dirt bike at age 5. I had dirt bikes all up through the years. At one time I had 4 dirt bikes. I think I was about 14. I've always been a pretty hardcore, I guess, woods rider, I guess you'd call it. I've never been on an actually I have been on a track, but it wasn't racing. We were just out there. We rented the track and went out and played. But I was always pretty stupid. I never wore a helmet. My idea of the helmet was a do-rag. And I actually learned my lesson on this bike. I always had CRs. This is a 250. This is me getting some pretty good air. But anyway, I ended up showing off for a bunch of people, and I went up a big incline. I tried to twist the bike up, and it come out of my hand on one side, and I bailed off of it. The bike landed on top of me, busted my head open, and I learned my lesson. I went and bought a helmet. I wore that helmet after that. But anyway, I got into street bikes. When I was 15, my dad bought me a GPZ 305, a 1983 GPZ 305. I love that bike, and that is actually me posing for it. A buddy of mine's dad took that picture for me. And I actually have 3 of these in my shed, and 2 of them are parts bikes, and I'm going to restore the other one. And that way I'll have my my GPZ back. You know, it's not my original bike. I tried tracking it down, I couldn't find it. But anyway, I thought that'd be kind of a cool video, just to show some of the stuff. That's pretty much my life story. I mean, it is cars through and through. I have owned countless cars through the years, tons and tons of cars, and it was always on to the next. I got tired of them so quick, and now that I've slowed down, I kind of enjoy working on them a little bit longer to make them a little bit nicer. Yeah, you know, it was amazing when I was that young. I actually worked in a restaurant when I built this car. I was the kitchen manager at Goldie's Restaurant in Langley, Oklahoma in the 90s, 94. And I built that car on that money. My wife and I lived with my mom and dad at that time, so that's why I got away with building it. But I don't know where that car went. It'd be kind of interesting to know. It was a really nice car, especially after I put the quarter on. But anyway, guys, looks like a nice day today, so I'm going to go out and work on my chassis for my 55. But I thought I'd post just a video of kind of why I got into Tri-5s and some of the cars that I've done. But anyway, I wish I could find them other pictures, but I'd have to do a major house cleaning to get to them, you know.